Solving quadratic equations. I'm going to solve by factoring, solve by completing the square, solve by the quadratic formula, and be able to find the discriminant in order to find the number of solutions. A quadratic equation is something that has an x squared in it. The degree is 2. So zero product property was the first one we will do, solve by factoring, states that if a times b equals 0, then that's true if and only if a equals 0 or b equals 0. So let's do a one here. So find all real solutions of the equation x squared minus 5x minus 24 by factoring, or equals 24 by factoring. So the first thing you do is set it equal to 0. So x squared minus 5x, move the 24 over, subtract 24 on both sides. X squared minus 5x minus 24 equals 0. So we move the 24 to the other side. And this has a leading coefficient of 1, so you can factor it by having an x and an x. So we need two numbers that multiply to 24, to negative 24, and add to negative 5. So it's going to be minus 8 and plus 3. And then I set each of those to 0. So I set x minus 8 equals to 0, equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. So my first solution is x equals 8. My second solution is x equals negative 3. How do you know if that is correct? I'll just show you. You can check it. So if I put 8 into my original equation, it'd be 8 squared minus 5 times 8. Does that equal 24? So that's 64 minus 40 equals 24, and that's a check. The second one has to check too. So if I have negative 3 quantity squared minus 5 times negative 3, does that equal 24? So negative 3 quantity squared is positive 9. This is positive 15, and that also equals 24. All right, next one, solve by factoring. The second one here, the leading coefficient is not a 1. So we have to do the x method. So multiply 4 and 1 and you get 4. Negative 5 goes here. So I need two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to negative 5. So that's going to be negative 4 and negative 1. Place those into the problem here. So we get 4x squared. Replace the negative 5x with negative 4x, negative 1x. Plus 1 equals 0. So we rename the negative 5 with these. Now you factor by grouping. So get the first two, second two. Out of the first two, we factor out of 4x. And we are left with x minus 1. Factor out a negative 1 here. So divide them both by negative 1. So negative 1x divided by negative 1 is x. 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1 equals 0. So then this factors to x minus 1 and 4x minus 1 equals 0. Then set each of those to 0. So x minus 1 equals 0. And 4x minus 1 equals 0. So x equals 1, and x equals add 1 divided by 4, 1/4. And you could check it the same way as the first one. Let's check at least the, let's put in 1. So 4 times 1 squared minus 5 times 1 plus 1, does that equal 0? So that's 4 times 1 minus 5 plus 1 equals 0. So that's 4. This is negative 4 equals 0, so that checks. And 1/4 would be 4 times 1/4 squared minus 5 times 1/4 plus 1. Does that equal 0? So using your calculator, So take 4 times 0.25, I'm going to use squared, minus 5 times 0.25, I made 1/4 0.25, plus 1. When I use the calculator, it equals 0. So 0 equals 0. So those two answers are correct. And the last one in this set. So we have x squared minus x. Move this 6 to the other side. So if it's positive 6, when it moves over, it becomes negative 6 equals 0. That has a leading coefficient of 1. So I need two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to negative 1. So that's going to be x minus 3, x plus 2. So then I know then x minus 3 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals 3, and x equals negative 2. It's actually an or. It's x equals 3 or x equals negative 2. And let's do a quick check on that. So does 3 squared minus 3 equals 6? It's going to be 9 minus 3 equals 6, and that's true. And then the last one is negative 2, quantity negative 2 squared minus negative 2. Does that equal 6? So negative 2 quantity squared is 4. This is plus 2 equals 6. And that is true also. Correct answers. So that's solved by factoring. All right, solve by completing the square. You have to add, these are kind of fun. You take the coefficient in front of the x divided by 2 and square it. Let me try to refresh your memory on this. But the first thing you do on these, this has to move to the other side. So this becomes x squared minus 10x plus blank equals negative 12. So that's the first step you do. And I know you've seen these, it's just been a little while. So then what goes in the blank is whatever is sitting there, which is negative 10. So you go over here to the side, you take whatever's in front of the x, negative 10, divided by 2, and then put it in parentheses, square it. So negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5 squared, which is 25, so you add 25. And in math, if you add 25 to one side, you have to add 25 to the other side to keep the equation balanced. So then you have to complete the square, and what goes in the parentheses, if you notice up here, what is in here is the b divided by 2 quantity squared. So I'm figuring out what goes in the parentheses, and it's whatever I had in here before I squared it. So this is going to be x minus 5 equals negative 12 plus 25 is 13. So it's whatever was in the parentheses. This is what goes in this spot. So these take a little bit of work, so you might want to make sure you practice some of these and understand each step of them. So then you finish this out. I'm going to rewrite that. X minus 5 quantity squared equals 13. Solving something with the squared, you're going to take the square root of both sides. But remember, when you take the square root, you have to do a plus or minus in front of what's on the right here. So this becomes x minus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 13. Finish that out, move your 5 over. So x equals 5 plus or minus the square root of 13. Checking these would be a little more difficult. You can find the decimal of 5 plus or minus the square root of 13. So 5 plus the square root of 13 is 8.61. So I know x equals 8.61 if I do 5 plus the square root of 13. Or x can be 5 minus the square root of 13 is 1.39. This is approximately. So then you check it by putting that back in the original one. So I have 8.61 quantity squared. I'm going to put approximately on those, because I rounded that with 5 plus the square root of 13 and 5 minus the square root of 13. So 8.61 quantity squared minus 10 times 8.61 plus 12. Does that equal 0? Use your calculator. 8.61 squared minus 10 times 8.61 plus 12. It's 0.03, so it's approximately 0. Okay. I'm going to put approximately 0. And then do 1.39 the same way. So 1.39 quantity squared minus 10 times 1.39 plus 12. Is this approximately 0? Let's see. 1.39 squared minus 10 times 1.39 plus 12 is 0.0321, which is close. So these are close and we're good to go because we rounded those decimals. But the answers that I'm looking for are 5 plus or minus the square root of 13. All right, let's try this next one here. It's got a leading coefficient this time of 2, so that one's going to take a little bit more work. Let's see what we have to do. First thing you want to do is divide everything by this 2. So that's going to give me x squared plus 7 over 2x plus 5 over 2 equals 0. Then move what's here to the other side. So x squared plus 7 over 2x plus blank equals negative 5 halves. Now what goes in the blank is 7 over 2 divided by 2 squared. Well, taking 7 over 2 divided by 2 is the same thing as taking 7 over 2 times 1/2 quantity squared. So let me write that out a little bit more. So this is the same as saying 7 over 2 divided by 2 quantity squared is the same as saying 7 over 2 times 1/2 quantity squared. Doesn't matter to me how you think about it. You can use your calculator in either one. So you get 7 over 4 quantity squared. So 49 over 16. That's what goes in the blank. I'm going to add that also to the other side. So then, completing the square, it's going to be x plus, this time, what I had in here before I squared it. So x plus 7 over 4 inside here squared equals, use your calculator, negative 5 over 2 plus 49 over 16. Make that a fraction. So you get 9 over 16. So combine those two, gives you this. Same thing as before, take the square root of both sides. So this ends up being x plus 7 over 4 equals plus or minus. The square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 16 is 4. So let's go over here and finish this. I'm going to rewrite it. I'm just going to move the 7 over 4 over. So that will be x equals negative 7 over 4 plus or minus 3 over 4. So 1x is negative 7 over 4 plus 3 over 4. Combine that, so you get negative 4 over 4, which is 1, negative 1. The other x is negative 7 over 4 minus 3 over 4. So that's going to give me negative 10 over 4, which is negative 5 halves. Those are my two x values. All right, the next two. Work these out on your own first. So you might hit pause on the video and see if you get them right. And then come back to the video and see if you have them correct. So I'm going to work out this one, not really talk through it. Yeah, I probably will. So I'm going to divide everything by 5 first. So you get x squared plus 2x minus 7 over 5 equals 0. Move this 7 over 5 to the other side. So x squared plus 2x plus blank equals 7 over 5. What goes in the blank again? Take this 2, divide it by 2, quantity squared. Always divide it by 2. So that's going to be 1 squared or 1. So 1 goes in the blank and add 1 to the other side. So this is x plus 1 quantity squared, because that's what I had in here before I squared it, equals 7 over 5 plus 1 would be 12 over 5. Take the square root of both sides. So x plus 1 equals plus or minus square root of 12 over square root of 5. Take the square root of each now. So this means x plus 1 equals plus or minus, remember how you break down the square root of 12? That's the square root of 4, square root of 3. So plus or minus 2 square root of 3 over the square root of 5. Rationalize the denominator, so multiply the top and bottom by square root of 5. So x plus 1 equals plus or minus 2 square root of 15 over 5. So multiply 3 times 5 and get 15 here. Finish this out, move the 1 over, so my final answer is x equals negative 1 plus or minus 2 square root of 15 over 5. Next one is not so terrible. Let's get a new color. I'll use red. First step on that one, move the 21 to the other side. So x squared plus 22x plus blank equals negative 21. What goes in the blank? Take the 22 divided by 2, quantity squared. So it's going to give me 11 squared or 121 in the blank. Add 121 to this side, so add that to both sides. So this is x plus 11 quantity squared. It's what I had before I squared it, equals, that's nice, 100. Take the square root of both sides. So x plus 11 equals plus or minus 10. Move the 11 over, so x equals negative 11 plus or minus 10. Give me my two answers here. X equals negative 11 plus 10, which is negative 1. X equals negative 11 minus 10, or negative 21. So my two answers, negative 1, negative 21. All right, last way to solve equations for today. Solving by the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The big takeaway is when you square that b squared in here, that's always a positive number. So I'm going to write that here. No, negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That b squared in here is always positive. So make sure whatever you have when you square it, it's a positive number. All right, so let's look at this. On the first one, negative 3x squared minus 5x minus 1. A is in front of the x squared, b is in front of the x, and c is by itself. And it has to equal 0. So a is negative 3, I'm going to write that. B is negative 5. C is negative 1. So using the quadratic formula, x equals negative b. So negative of negative 5 is positive 5. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. When I square negative 5, I get 25. Minus 4. A times c I like to do, so negative 3. All over twice of a, negative 6. Finish this, so I have, move this one over here to the right a little bit. 5 plus or minus square root of, what is that? So 25. So 25 minus 4 times negative 3, 37. So I have 5 plus or minus square root of 37 over negative 6, and just leave it like that. You are done. So I will want exact values on these. All right, letter B, new color, Mr. Green. My A value is 4, my B value is 12, and C is 9. So your x is negative b, so negative 12 plus or minus square root of b squared. So 12 squared is 144. Minus 4 times ac, I like to multiply those, so 36. All over twice a, so 2 times 4 is 8. Finish that, so negative 12 plus or minus square root of, so use your calculator. 144 minus 4 times 36 is 0. So square root of 0 over 8. This one we can simplify, so do so. So negative 12 plus or minus 0 is just 0 over 8. My answer is negative 12 over 8. Divide those by what? 4. So negative 3 over 2, and that is my one solution. Considered a double root, but it is one answer. All right, letter C. I like to make these a little nicer. Fractions sometimes get confusing. So what you can do is multiply everything by 3, the common denominator. So when I multiply by 3, 3 times 1/3 just gives me x squared minus 6x plus 12 equals 0. So I'm multiplying 3 times 1/3, you get 1. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 3 times 4 is 12. So then your A is 1. My B is negative 6 and C is 12. Use the quadratic formula, so x equals negative b, so that's going to be 6. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. So if I square negative 6, I get 36. Minus 4 times 12. 8 times c is 12 over 2. 2 times 1 is 2. Finish this, so I get 6 plus or minus square root of, so 36 minus 4 times 12 is negative 12 over 2. So use what you did yesterday. So that's going to be 12 is square root of 4, square root of 3, and then we'll put the I on the outside. So square root of 4 is 2, so I get 6 plus or minus 2I square root of 3 over 2. Everything here on the outside divides by 2, so divide by 2, I get 3 plus or minus I square root of 3. You could also write that as 3 plus or minus square root of 3 with the I not under the radical. All right, the next two solve using the quadratic formula. I am just going to work them out, not talk this time. So just follow through and see that it makes sense. Oh, I'm probably going to talk, but sometimes I won't. So I'm going to move the 7 over first. So 3x squared minus x plus 7 equals 0. So x is 3, not x. How about a is 3? B is negative 1, c is 7. So x equals negative 1, so 1 plus or minus square root of b squared. Square negative 1, you get 1. It's 4 times 21. A times c is 21. Over 6. 2 times a is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So 1 minus 4 times 21. Negative 83. Weird little answer. So 1 plus or minus square root of 83i over 6. All right, the last one. Let's see what you get. Work this out on your own and then check when it's done. That's going to be 9 minus 4 times negative 4 over twice a 4. Negative 3 plus or minus square root of 9 minus 4 times negative 4 is 25. So square root of 25 over 4. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus 5 over 4. So my two answers are negative 3 plus 5 over 4 and negative 3 minus 5 over 4. So 2 over 4 reduces to 1/2. And this is negative 8 over 4. which is negative 2. Let me write that one more step. So that's going to give me 2 over 4, which is 1/2. And the last one has a fraction, so multiply everything on this one by 2 first. Oops. Let's go to the 9. So that's going to give you x squared minus 6x plus 18 equals 0. Let's use the quadratic formula. X equals negative b, so that's going to give me 6 plus or minus square root of b squared. It's going to be 36 minus 4 times 18. AC is 1 times 18 over twice A2. So 6 plus or minus square root of 36 minus 4 times 18. It's negative 36 all over 2. So that gives me 6 plus or minus 6i over 2. Everything divides by 2, so 3 plus or minus 3i. All right, last part of the notes today, discriminant. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So I'm going to write that off to the side here. And b squared minus 4ac is the material or the numbers under the radical sign. So if under the radical sign is bigger than 0, you have 2 real solutions. If the d equals 0, then you have exactly 1, like the example we had back here that had one answer. My determinant was 0. My discriminant, I mean, was 0. So I had one solution of negative 3/2. And then if d is less than 0, like this last one, the negative 36, we have no real solution. You actually had 2 complex solutions. So use the discriminants. All you do is do ABC. You're just doing b squared minus 4ac. So positive 4 squared is 16 minus 4ac. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. So 16 plus 4 gives me 20, so I have 2 real. So my discriminant is 20, and I have 2 real. Next one, b squared minus 4ac. So if I square negative 12, I get 144. Minus 4 times ac, 4 times 9 is 36. So using your calculator, 144 minus 4 times 36 gives me 144 minus 4 times 36 is 0. So that means 1 real solution. And last one, b squared minus 4ac. We can leave the fractions in there on this one if you want. So b squared negative 2 squared is 4. Oh, I'll write that down. b squared minus 4ac. So negative 2 squared is 4 minus 4 times 1/3 is 4/3. So 4 minus 4/3. 4 minus 4 times 4/3 is negative 4/3. So since that's a negative number, it has no real solution or 2 complex. All right, last 3 here. So b squared minus 4ac equals 0. Oh, not equals 0. b squared minus 4ac. So square 2, I get 4. Minus 4, a times c, 4 times 1 is 4. So this gives me 4 minus 4 times 4 is negative 12. So my discriminant is negative 12, which means no real solution. Next one, b squared minus 4ac. b squared is 81 minus 4 times negative 1. So 81 plus 4 is what that will be. So it looks like 85. So my discriminant is 85. So this has 2 real. It's a positive number. And the last one, b squared minus 4ac. So b squared is 64 minus 4 times 16. That's going to be 64 minus another 64, so I get 0 for the discriminant, which means I have 1 real solution. That's it.